Welcome back, everybody, to another edition of the Fatboyz Dynasty podcast, hosted as always by the Fantasyholics Podcast Network on the YouTube channel. Coming at you as always, Bo and Brant. Brant, I know last week we kind of went through some of our running backs that we were able to stat out. And the week prior, we had talked about our quarterbacks that we had statted out. And now we're kind of at a place where we've sat down, we've had some time to be able to consensusly rank our top 12 quarterbacks and our top 24 running backs. It's been some struggles, a lot of math involved, which obviously equates to a lot of snacks because you need brain power to do these things.
A lot of extra chippies.
Correct. A few late nights in there as well. And then some personal sacrifices have had to have been made to get this show present today. But nonetheless, we're here. We're still husky fellas, and we've got a good show coming down the pipeline today, Brant.
Yeah, absolutely. Today we're going to talk about our early season rankings, our pre-training camp, because we know things will change. But we wanted to get these out. We know a lot of people are starting to get into that draft mode. I know we're already getting blown up in some of our group chats about, hey, when are we drafted? When are we drafted? We're ready to draft. Dude, calm down. Training camp hasn't even started. Mm-hmm. Calm down. That torn ACL that happens every year has not came yet. Everybody calm down. But yeah, this was an absolute fun one to do, and it's going to be fun to talk about. And I'm sure you're going to hear some names inside our top 24 and inside our top 12 that may have you scratching your head. Don't hesitate to give us a little feedback on these and let us know what you think, because we hop on it. We hop on constantly on that Fantasyholics page, and we'll definitely get our 2 cents in there on why we think this could happen if we miss out on talking about it.
Absolutely, Brant. Absolutely. So let's get the bibs on, Brant.
Oh, yeah. Let's get them bibs out.
All right, Brant. So I think before we really get into this, we have to also, again, put the disclaimer on. I know you started with it, but these are our consensus rankings that we did in June, right? So obviously there's some things that can change. There's still some big free agent running backs out there. There's still some big free agent wide receivers that are out there that could change the landscape of the quarterbacks. So obviously these rankings are going to be ever changing, and we'll probably put out like updates at some point as dominoes fall. Whether it be Dalvin Cook or Kareem Hunt or Zeke Elliott or DeAndre Hopkins or whatever else is out there. So obviously these are where we sit right now. If we were drafting a startup right now, this is where we would be on a lot of our rankings probably. And more so for just this next season. But thankfully, this is not something that we are etching into stone. We are not out there taking a rock and a hammer and a chisel and putting these into something that we could never go back and change. So, we're going to start with our quarterbacks, Brant. We'll start from the bottom and work our way up through our top 12 quarterbacks here, and we'll see where we're at.
Absolutely. Good morning, Jennifer. Thanks for joining us this early morning with us to go over these rankings. Absolutely. Let's get into these quarterbacks. Let's talk about these names here. A lot of good names, and I think a lot of them we were pretty close on. I know you said when we got to crunching numbers there at the bottom, we had a little back and forth with it, but I think we like what we're at right now, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's always funny to see, when you can do a co-hosted show like we do, Brant, when we want to make consensus rankings for the Fatboyz. It's always interesting when you combine my brain with yours, and it's like, wow, we're both a lot higher on player X than I would have expected us to be, or however that may pan out. But it's definitely interesting. But anyway, let's jump into these quarterbacks, Brant. I'll go ahead and get us kicked off with number 12 here. At number 12, we have a guy who's changing scenery this offseason. Went from one shade of green to another, and that's Aaron Rodgers, getting ready to be the quarterback for the New York Jets. Brant, this is a Jets team that you and I have been bullish on, starting last year, and then continuing here. There'll be several Jets players that we have ranked in our consensus rankings over the whether it be the quarterback, running back, wide receiver positions. So we said it a couple years ago, Jets to the moon. I do think we both are kind of having Aaron Rodgers taking a small step back from where he was in his MVP years with Green Bay, obviously, but I think we have him taking a positive step forward from where he was last year with his depleted wide receiver core. So we have him for 385 completions this year for 4,236 passing yards, 30 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, 100 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns, and we have him coming in at 291.4 fantasy points, Brant. So, we obviously like the fact that he's got Garrett Wilson now to throw the ball to, a good running game with Breece Hall, and that we think the change of scenery maybe will have him a little bit more engaged and a little bit more passionate coming in here at 12.
Yeah, absolutely. He gets a lot of his trusted targets from Green Bay to come over with him there at 12. So absolutely, I think 12 is a very good spot to start it. Like you said, it's early rankings. We'll see how camp goes with him, how the chemistry builds with his younger weapons. But yeah, I think 12 is a great spot for him. I'll go ahead and hit number 11, and that's we have Kirk Cousins. That was one that we went back and forth on a little bit. We have him for 412 completions, 4,565 passing yards, 29 passing touchdowns, 13 interceptions, 95 rushing yards, and 2 rushing touchdowns for 294.1 fantasy points. This is the guy that's adding a new weapon. He lost Thielen. He lost one of his favorite targets this offseason, but he's adding one of, if not the best wide receiver in this rookie class in Addison. He'll get Madison, who has amazing hands. And it's not a huge drop off in my mind from Cook. Especially Cook at his age, and Madison's very, very productive. So we have a lot of help out of the backfield. His line should get bolstered up just a little bit more. Kirk Cousins is at a great spot at number 11. I know we both went back and forth on him a little bit, but I think we settled at a good spot for him.
Yeah, one word or one thing that I have to say about Kirk Cousins, and it's real short. Justin Jefferson, Brant.
Yeah.
All right, number 10, we have Lamar Jackson here, and I think between the two of us, we kind of buy in a little bit on the change of offensive coordinator, dialing back his running just a skosh. We have him with 295 pass completions, 3,282 passing yards, 22 touchdowns, 13 interceptions, adding 869 rushing yards, and another 5 scores on the ground. Brant, we have him coming in at 310.1 fantasy points, getting into our top 10.
Our first running back we're going to talk about. Quarterback.
Yep.
Next, Jackson's adding a whole bunch of targets. Let's see if this system's legit, or let's see if it's not. I saw Bateman actually got out there on the field. I'm going to throw my shots in at Bateman since, I've been holding on to that bandwagon for a little bit. Next up on our board, and that's at number, 9, is Deshaun Watson. And we have him for 365 completions, 4,079 passing yards, 25 passing touchdowns, 11 interceptions, adding 457 rush yards and 4 rushing touchdowns at 310.8 fantasy points this year. He has a young, very explosive tight end in Njoku. He's got a decent receiving core coming out with Amari Cooper, and then they added Elijah Moore. Then you got Peoples-Jones there, and you still got David Bell creeping. Maybe it'll be weird, or it won't be weird. It'll be fun to watch what happens with that receiving core during training camp and everything else.
Absolutely, Brant. At number 8, one of my favorite quarterbacks on this list that I think is just going to continue to climb. We have Trevor Lawrence coming in at 8, 383 passing completions, 4,168 passing yards, 26 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, 292 rush yards to go along with 5 rushing touchdowns, coming in at 311.9 fantasy points, Brant. So between 8 and 10, we have 3 guys that are separated by 1.8 fantasy points here.
Absolutely, absolutely. Trevor Lawrence is a guy right here that you could easily see creep into the top 5 quarterbacks. He has great weapons added. You got to see what happens with Ridley coming back. This is a man that could absolutely explode and be a top 5 quarterback this year. And what's not to say he creeps into the top 1 or 2 quarterbacks. He does have that rushing ability. He does have that QB sneak ability. Trevor Lawrence is one of my favorite guys this year. I know we were both talking about him. We've talked about him constantly. They're talking about, how explosive ETN is going to help with him in the backfield. Trevor Lawrence is a guy that I think could easily be moved up our rankings. And if I had to guess, as we go closer to the season and we start talking more, I see Trevor Lawrence going up, and up in our rankings.
Absolutely, Brant. Couldn't agree more.
All right, so next up on the list is Dak Prescott. It's a guy that I was not very high on until you and me sat down. We started talking, and then you're like, look at his numbers, man. You got to look closer. And then I sat down and I looked closer, and I'm like, holy crap, he does have actually really good years. I start to sit on that, oops, I threw interceptions every single game for like the last 12 games. And then you're like, oh, wait, he actually does really good, though. We have him for 366 completions, 4,179 passing yards, 27 passing touchdowns, 11 interceptions, 278 rushing yards, 6 rushing touchdowns for 316.4 points. This is a guy to watch out for. This is a guy that could be adding another weapon to his team. I know Dallas has been in talks in that rumor mill for Hopkins and Cook. So this is a guy that absolutely could be changing some. But I think right now where we have him right now at 7 is an absolute great spot for him.
Okay, Brant. So quick recap: 12, Aaron Rodgers; 11, Kirk Cousins; 10, Lamar Jackson; 9, Deshaun Watson; 8, Trevor Lawrence; and 7, Dak Prescott. So Brant, anything that really sticks out there that surprises you a ton? If not, we'll go ahead and move on. But in our bottom 6 of our top 12.
No, not really. It'll be interesting to see, like I said, Rodgers and Jackson throughout this offseason will be the ones that I'm really paying attention to a little bit closer than everyone. I want to see what happens with the new offense there in Baltimore, and then Rodgers going into a new system. But like I said, he's got a bunch of trusted guys with him, adding Lazar and Cobb there, and then that amazing receiving core with Garrett Wilson there. So it'll be fun to see what happens with Rodgers.
Okay, let's get into our top 6 here. At 6, Justin Herbert, 461 passing completions for 4,783 pass yards, 29 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, adding another 218 yards on the ground and another 2 scores, coming in at 319.1 fantasy points, Brant. Obviously, we're hoping for a healthy Keenan Allen. We're hoping for a healthy Mike Williams, and we're hoping that Quentin Johnston takes a step forward in these rankings. If those things all happen, Justin Herbert has a darn good fantasy year, and 6 could look a lot closer to top 3 at the end of it.
Absolutely. These next names that we're going to hit are all guys that we were both very high on. We both think could make huge steps. Herbert's right there in a great spot to move up in those rankings. And he still has one of the most explosive backs in the backfield catching the ball in Austin Eckler. Next up on the list is Justin Fields. We have him there sitting at number 5, 250 pass completions, the lowest on this board. 3,046 passing yards, the lowest on this board. 22 passing touchdowns, 13 interceptions, 987 rushing yards, 8 rushing TDs, 330.5 fantasy points. This is where we start to really see that rushing upside take over for these quarterbacks in our rankings.
Absolutely, Brent. And if it wasn't for Justin Fields' rushing upside, if this dude had Matt Ryan's rushing ability, he'd be ranked at like 32. It'd be way down there. So, there you go. At number 4, we have Joe Burrow. Brant, this gives us our 3rd quarterback ranked in the AFC North. So obviously that's going to be a really fun division to watch again this year, at least in our opinions. Joe Cool coming in at 401 completions 4,556 yards, or excuse me, 4,555 yards, 36 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, 255 rushing yards, and another 5 touchdowns, coming in at a whopping 359.7 fantasy points.
Yep, it's Joe Burrow. They're going to air the ball out. Look at the receiving core he's got. Look at the backfield he's got. There's not a whole lot to add about him. Next up is another guy you're going to see, and he's number 3, and that's Jalen Hurts. 334 completions, 4,108 passing yards, 24 passing touchdowns, 12 interceptions, adding another 794 rushing yards, 11 rushing touchdowns for a whopping 381.7 fantasy points. Once again, it's that rushing upside that really puts him over the top of some of these other names.
Absolutely. So at number 2, this is obviously going to reveal who we have at number 1, unless you were born under a rock. But at number 2, we have Josh Allen, coming in at 375 pass completions, 4,304 yards passing, 34 touchdowns, 13 interceptions, adding 753 yards on the ground and 6 touchdowns, giving him 393.4 fantasy points this year, Brant.
Yeah, absolutely. It's Allen. It's between Allen and Mahomes for number 1. And let's rattle off Mahomes' stats real fast. 433 completions, 5,105 passing yards, 39 passing touchdowns, 11 interceptions, 342 rush yards, 4 rushing touchdowns, 396.4 points. Just want to bring up, if you look, you go down, and every single the top 3 we have over 380, and then it drops all the way down to 359. So that's where kind of that jump is. You got your top 3, top 4, and then you have that gap in our mind.
Yeah, and Brant, you bring up a really good point when you bring that up, and it's, if you don't get one of those top 3 guys and that value starts to drop out of the bottom, right? There's not really any big point to go jump for a quarterback, right? If you miss out on one of those top 4 or 5 guys, even 5, I would give a nod to. But if you look at number 6, you have Justin Herbert at 319 fantasy points, Brant. Our number 12 quarterback in Aaron Rodgers, we have at 291. That's not a huge difference. That's a weekly difference of what, like 2.5 points, something like that, over the course of a season. And you can make those up elsewhere. If you're in the 5th round and you see that run on quarterback start with Mahomes and all the way through Justin Fields are taken, why not pull back and grab a wide receiver 2 that you're going to plug into your lineup and start, and then wait for a guy like Aaron Rodgers or Kirk Cousins to fall into your lap later in the draft once you've already addressed all the other important points, because you're not missing out on a whole lot of points that way.
Absolutely. It's that gap that we always talk about, and right there we're showing you what we think it's at. It's the top 5, and then just wait on them. Super flex, hopefully you get one of those top 5 guys, then you get to pair them with one of these other bottom guys. Check out ADPs. Maybe we'll discuss that later on. Where do I take this guy, or would I rather have this guy? Maybe we'll bring that up later on in one of our casts. Let's jump over to these running backs. I think that these running backs. Go ahead. Before we
do, Brant, I want to say we both had Justin Fields high enough that we were able to get him into our top 5 in rankings. Justin Fields is the one quarterback in our top 12 consensus rankings that I will put it on air right now. He could just as easily finish as quarterback 19 this season. If his passing doesn't improve from last year and he somehow isn't able to be as elusive as he was last year, he comes way down these rankings. Obviously, I think we both are kind of in agreement that we think he takes that step forward a little bit. DJ Moore helps, but I just wanted to say that he is the riskiest quarterback, in my opinion, that we have in our top 12.
Absolutely. I agree 110%. We just did a super flex startup, and I was dead set on getting this guy to start with. I'm expecting the huge leap, but it's like you said, he's either a leap or he's fallen back. It all depends on where it's at. We got a nice question from Jennifer here before we leap over. I am in round 6 of our dynasty startup and don't have a QB yet. I'm pick 11. Should I grade a QB? Cousins and Rodgers is available.
In a dynasty startup, Brant, what do you think about the idea of grabbing one of Cousins or Rodgers now, and then in a few rounds grabbing a CJ Stroud or a Bryce Young to potentially have the future and the current to keep yourself active?
Absolutely don't mind that at all. I'd like to see what the rest of your roster looks like from rounds 1 through 5. See how you're sitting with the rest, because if you're in compete now, I absolutely would not mind doing this now. If you are in a, hey, I'm starting young on this dynasty, then maybe just hold out and grab another young guy right here. But Cousins and Rodgers could definitely keep you in the competition right now.
Absolutely, Brant. Absolutely. All right. Now let's go ahead and get into those running backs. And Brant, I know you're chomping at the bit to tell us about this guy we have at 24. So I'm going to let you kick us off with the running backs.
Number 24 is a guy that I was on that choo-choo train. You and me went back and forth with him and another guy, and I'll just say that other guy's not in our top 24. Now, this was 2-3 years ago that we did talk about it. This is Cam Akers. This is one guy that I absolutely love this year. We got him statted for 246 rushes, 1,010 yards, 19 rushing touchdowns, 171 receiving yards. Oh, I'm sorry, 19 receptions. Sorry, I looked at it wrong. 171 receiving yards and 9 total touchdowns for 191.7. 191.1 fantasy points. Wow, I am stuttering through this. I am so excited about this guy. In my mind, Cam Akers is a guy that his receiving should go up without Baker Mayfield in the backfield. This is a guy that I could easily see. I'm just gonna put it a little lower right now. Easily see him going into the top 20. Maybe top 15. I think his receiving goes up. There's no real threat in his backfield. This is a guy that a lot of people are still sleeping on, even though if you look at the end of the year, how explosive he was for the Rams. I know the Rams were banged up and playing for absolutely nothing. But Cam Akers is a guy that could turn out, be extremely explosive. He's 1 year removed from a devastating injury that he had. He should be back to almost 100%. And he should be a guy that should hit the ground running for this Rams team, and maybe second best offensive weapon on that team behind Cooper Kupp.
Okay. Yeah, sure. I could get behind that. Let's take a quick pause here because Jennifer did send us who her top 5 picks were. Brant, she went Jamar Chase, Bijan Robinson, Tyreek Hill, Mark Andrews, and Ramondre Stevenson. So
get a quarterback. Get a quarterback.
She's competing this year, so yeah, I like that as well, Brant. All right, so at number 23, we have Travis Etienne. We have him rushing the ball 221 times for 1,008 total rushing yards, 32 receptions for 279 reception yards, 7 total touchdowns, coming in at 202.7 fantasy points, Brant. So we obviously do think Travis Etienne still has a big role, but we do think there's enough pass catchers coming in with Ridley, Kirk, and Zay Jones that the backfield may be like a second thought in this offense.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think that the running lane should open up a little bit more this year for him. A lot of explosive plays. We know what Etienne's capable of. He doesn't really have the takeoff ability. He will get tracked down, but he has that explosive ability to average 8 yards per carry at any given time in a game. Etienne's a guy that I absolutely love going forward this year.
Okay.
This is a guy I was a little iffy on, and I still am, but he did creep into our top 20 or top 24, and that's Damian Pierce there in Houston. 198 attempts, 910 rushing yards, 42 receptions, 231 receiving yards, 8 total touchdowns for 204.1 fantasy points. Pierce is a guy that could be it's make or break for him. I know that he had a great year last year, but he dealt with some injuries at the end of the year, and then they added Singletary there in the backfield, and that guy has shown a glimpses of being explosive. So Singletary could take over the backfield, but as of right now, I'm very comfortable with Pierce being inside our top 24.
Okay. This next guy we're going to talk about, Brant, I think he only has a good season because I think this team may be a historically bad offense this year. I am completely out on most things Carolina Panthers at this point. The one exception being Miles Sanders. We have him for 224 rushing attempts, 1,040 rush yards, 34 receptions, 194 reception yards, and 9 total touchdowns, coming in at 211.4 fantasy points, Brant. Man, I just don't know what to make of this Carolina offense. It's either going to be really electric with Bryce Young, or it's going to be a complete dud. And, we'll see. For fantasy, I'm not sure how I feel about anybody there right now, with the exception of Miles Sanders, Brant.
Yeah, Miles Sanders is about the only thing I like in Carolina right now. It'll be a fun training camp to watch and go through, but I think Miles Sanders is right now the cornerstone of that offense. I know, you added a new shiny toy behind the center, but Sanders is the only proven thing on that field right now. And that's funny. We go from what we think might be the worst offense to what is probably the best offense in the NFL. And we're talking about Isaiah Pacheco there at number 20. And we have him for 204 attempts, 878 rush yards, 42 receptions, 336 receiving yards, 9 total touchdowns, 217.4 fantasy points. Best offense in the NFL. You got to find a running back that's going in there. This guy looks like he may have set himself as the number one over CMC over CEH and Jerick McKinnon. Boy, early mornings are not great for me.
It's not the early morning; it's the alphabet, Brant. Isaiah Pacheco is one that he could either be. We could either have him ranked perfectly, too low, or way too high. There's no telling what he's going to be this year. With his low draft stature, we'll see what happens. I think he's going to be pretty close to coming in at that RB2 numbers, just based on what his opportunities are going to look like. He's going to get a lot of goal line work, a lot of opportunity to get those shovel passes potentially. Mahomes is famous for making his running backs look good on. We'll see. Okay, Brant. I got to preface this one at 19 here because this is one that if things go the way that we've thought they will for a while, this guy could be way, way too high, right? Because Alvin Kamara could be suspended. But we did this as if the season was starting tomorrow, as if there was no, suspension looming. And here we are. Alvin Kamara is a guy that I went from being completely out on to completely back in on. I think he's going to have 100. We have him for 192 rushing attempts, 864 rushing yards, 60 receptions, 492 receiving yards, and 6 total touchdowns. Brant, I want to remind the world that this is a running back that had 6 touchdowns on one game a couple years ago. And this could be a guy that could come out and have 15 touchdowns this year and shoot way up the rankings. So Alvin Kamara is a guy that, I'm going to brag for a small moment. It was an 8-man draft, but we did a dynasty startup. I got Alvin Kamara in the 17th round, Brant, and I felt like I was stealing him at that price. This is a guy that could win me a lot of matchups, and I got him at a value that was so unbelievably cheap. Kamara could be a top 10 running back this year if things go a little differently and the touchdown equity's there.
Absolutely. I mean, we've seen it before with him being a top 10, being a top 3 running back. So the sky's the limit for Alvin Kamara. Next up is a guy that's in a backfield by committee there in Detroit, and that's Jahmyr Gibbs. We have him for 180 rush attempts, 756 rush yards, 54 receptions, 432 receiving yards, 10 total touchdowns, 232.8 fantasy points. We saw what Detroit likes to do on the goal line. Now we have to figure out who that goal line back is taking over for Jamal Williams. And I think Gibbs is going to be able to see quite a bit of it.
Okay, fair enough, Brant. At 17, we have another running back by committee in that same division. We have Aaron Jones of the Green Bay Packers coming in at 17th, 200 attempts, 760 rush yards, 58 receptions, 353 receiving yards, 11 total touchdowns, coming in at 235.3 fantasy points.
Yeah, and that's another backfield that's going to be by committee and fun to watch all season. And I think Jones is going to be the guy that's more stable out of those two, more consistent, should I say. Next up is another guy with looming suspension, looming legal problems. He's in a great offense. And right here at number 16 is about the most comfortable we could probably put him because we could not get him up into the RB1 talks, and you can't keep him out of the RB2 talks. That's Joe Mixon of the Cincinnati Bengals. 276 attempts, 1,048 rush yards, 49 receptions, 372 receiving yards, 8 total touchdowns for 239 fantasy points. And it's just Joe Mixon, and he just does his thing. He sees the ball. He's never been the most flashiest of running backs fantasy-wise, but he sees the carries there in Cincinnati, and with no P. Ryan behind him, I think he's very consistent and very stable as long as he can stay healthy.
Okay, Brant. I know it's my turn technically. It doesn't feel right for me to take the guy at number 15 because you've been so bullish on him all offseason. I want you to plant your flag here. So go ahead, Brant.
That's it. This is the guy that I absolutely love. He's going to be great this year. I feel like he's going to be great this year, and that's James Conner, Arizona Cardinals. What is there? Kyler Murray's missing time. Receiving core is all up in question mark. So you really don't know what's going to happen with that. You don't even know what's happening with the quarterback. You probably don't know what's happening with the offensive line or defensive or anything else. But you know this guy is going to be starting in the backfield. That's James Conner. Now, when I started him out for the first time, I thought I was very, very bad. But then I remembered we're talking running backs, not quarterbacks, when I averaged out his points here. So I have him for 238 attempts. He's going to see the ball, and he's going to see it a lot. 989 yards, maybe not the most per average carry. 45 reception because, like I said, who's receiving the ball there? 242 receiving yards, 12 total touchdowns, 240 fantasy points. Sitting there at number 15, this guy could easily move way up the rankings because, like I said, there is nothing in Arizona besides James Conner that is set in stone until about halfway through the season. Then we might see something. But as long as James Conner stays healthy, this guy's a steal in every single draft in my mind.
Okay, Brent, fair enough. At number 14, we have a relatively unproven running back in Rachaad White coming in here. 264 attempts, 1,003 rushing yards, 64 receptions, 390 receiving yards, 8 total touchdowns, 251.3 fantasy points, taking a huge step forward. No Leonard Fournette, no Ronald Jones. Rachaad White is going to own this backfield in Tampa Bay, Brant, and become a very, very big staple moving forward. No Tom Brady. It's going to be a lot for the running backs to pick up this year.
Absolutely, absolutely. As long as Baker can learn to dump the ball off to this explosive back and get him some opportunities in the receiving game, this man is going to move up and be perfectly set in that top 14 spot. So, number 13, Alexander Mattison. Like I said earlier, I don't see it as a huge drop-off from Cook. We have him stouted, and it's on our Facebook if you want to go see it. 240 attempts, 1,005 rushing yards, 53 receptions, 318 receiving yards, 11 total touchdowns, 251.3 points. This is a guy that absolutely is a steal in most drafts. And if you're in a dynasty league and you cuffed him, guess what? You just got a top 15 back because Cook is out the door. Now you get to see where Cook goes, and you have a possibly RB1 and 2 just with those two names if you were able to cuff Cook in all fantasy startups.
All right, Brent. So obviously we had Madison at 251.3 fantasy points. We also had Rachaad White at 251.3 fantasy points. I let you be the tiebreaker on how we rank these guys and your reasoning for Alexander Mattison being ahead as you thought he'd have a better receiving workload.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Kirk Cousins knows how to dump the ball off. He's done that for his career. We've seen that a lot. Baker Mayfield, like I just said with Cam Akers, showed he's not the greatest at dumping the ball off. I know up in Cleveland he had Hunt and Chubb, and the receiving game was down with those two when Baker was in town. So I just don't know if Baker can do it and dump the ball off to White.
Okay. So again, 24 through 13, we have Cam Akers, Travis Etienne, Damian Pierce, Miles Sanders, Isaiah Pacheco, Alvin Kamara, Jahmyr Gibbs, Aaron Jones, Joe Mixon, James Conner, Rachaad White, and Alexander Mattison rounding out those numbers. All right, Brant, let's get into the top 12 here, and then we'll leave a little bit of time for some discussion between the two of us here at the end. At number 12, we have Nick Chubb coming in, who we just talked about with a nod to Baker Mayfield. 301 rushing attempts, 1,354 rush yards, 30 receptions, 240 receiving yards, 11 total touchdowns, coming in at 255.3 fantasy points.
It's Nick Chubb. It's never going to be fancy. It's never going to be beautiful, but you're going to watch that man pound the ball because that's what they do in Cleveland, even with Deshaun Watson. And now there's no Kareem Hunt stealing carries. I know Ford's there, but it's the Nick Chubb show this year in my mind.
Okay.
So at number 11 is a guy that I absolutely love this year, and I've loved ever since he came into the league. And I've loved this man ever since he decided he wanted to play track and field on the field against Notre Dame in the college football playoffs and do little hurdles over our defender. That's Najee Harris. 305 attempts, 1,206 rushing yards, 50 receptions, 258 receiving yards, 10 total touchdowns, 256.4 fantasy points. Najee Harris, we've seen this so many years in a row with Pittsburgh. They pound the ball, and they're going to continue to pound the ball with Najee.
Yeah, absolutely, Brant. Najee's a guy that I think, again, the offensive line was built back up a little bit. The passing game is going to take a step forward. So again, these running lanes are going to be open. Najee should face less stacked boxes than he did last year. I think he gets back to what he did his rookie season. The numbers take a positive step again this year, and getting him back into fantasy relevancy here, RB1 numbers, if you will. At number 10, Brant, this is one that I think we could still have. I'm not sure the jury's sold on it. If things stay exactly the way they are today, I'm fairly confident with this player. If a single name gets added to this backfield anywhere, it all goes down the drain. That's Tony Pollard of the Dallas Cowboys. Brant, we have him statted for his biggest workload of his entire career. Never had to do this before, so if it sticks around, we'll see if he's capable. But we have him at 257 attempts, 1,226 rushing yards, 48 receptions, 391 receiving yards, and 10 total touchdowns, coming in at 269.7 fantasy points.
Yeah, you get a more explosive back in the Dallas backfield than what they've had over the last few years. And you hit the nail on the head. If they add anybody, these are all, that's exact numbers that we got to look at again. So I know it's my turn, but I'm not taking your boy, your favorite player on this list right now. I'm definitely not taking that away from you. Go ahead and hit it and tell us all about him.
All right, Brant. So obviously, for those of you that joined us live when we did the draft coverage, I know, Brant, you were there in person, but I'm talking about the show the Fantasy Holics did when the Falcons took Bijan Robinson at number 8. I was pretty over the moon. And then I realized maybe I'd overshot the moon and was going a lot further into orbit as I actually did his initial rankings, because I had him for like 27,000 rush yards this year, 412 touchdowns, 97,000 receptions for 201 million receiving yards and 1 billion fantasy points. And, I had to humble myself a little bit. I was able to bring him back down to earth a little bit in my own rankings. And then we did our consensus rankings on him, and it brought him back into perspective. And you have to give a little bit of a nod to Tyler Algier, who's still in that backfield as well. So all things good. It was good that I got humbled, but I will say, I still do think in a startup dynasty draft today, Bijan Robinson is the number 1 running back, in my opinion, for the life of his career. And I do think he's got an outside chance for him to be RB1 this season. It's very outside, but we have him at 9, 281 rushing attempts, 1,307 rushing yards, 44 receptions for 328 receiving yards, 11 total touchdowns, coming in at 273.5 fantasy points.
Yeah, Robinson's going to be a guy that's going to be interesting to watch in that backfield. And I know, actually, I stood next to a Falcons fan at the draft, and I looked at him. I said, the only thing that makes sense for you guys right now is Bijan at the draft. And I think he's going to step in. He's going to take a very, very hefty workload. I just cannot give him the full nod of taking everything away from Algier and Patterson's old man butt still creeping around there. So I think he may take a few receptions. But I absolutely love seeing you high on him. I absolutely love seeing you having a flag to plant on one of your running backs. I know last year we talked about Algier, and you weren't completely sold on that whole backfield, but I'm happy you're going to get sold on him this year, and I hope it works out. I do love Bijan, and I am in consensus with you as in a dynasty startup. In a dynasty single QB startup, Bijan should be the 101 running back. Next up is a guy that we think is going to get back on track, and that's Jonathan Taylor of the Indianapolis Colts, 280 attempts, 1,250 rush yards, 52 receptions, 260 receiving yards, 12 total touchdowns, 275 fantasy points. This guy, the only thing I have to say about him is let's see what Anthony Richardson does with a running back like him. Let's see if he can actually use him in both the pass and the rush game.
Yep, I'm right there with you, Brant. There's a lot of unknown factors based on the quarterback at that position or on that team. So we'll see how that affects Jonathan Taylor. Brant, our running back coming in at number 7. This is one that you and I both sat down and we were like, wait a minute, this is way too high. How'd this happen? And then we both went back and looked at the numbers from last year, and it's like, oh, that's exactly how this happened because he finished at number 7 in PPR formats last year as well. That's Ramondre Stevenson. I think maybe the hard part is trusting a running back to replicate something in a Bill Belichick offense. That's not something we've seen a lot in the past. So maybe that's the come apart here for you and I. But we do have him statted at 277 rushing attempts for 1,329 rushing yards, 60 receptions for 372 receiving yards, and 8 total touchdowns, coming in at 278 fantasy points.
It's another guy that he almost has to replicate it because there's nothing else really there besides Pierre Strong hanging out. So as long as they don't add a name, I think we both sat down and crunched these numbers and looked at them and argued back and forth on what happened here and came up with he's going to sit inside the top 10.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Next up, Breece Hall. This guy, come back healthy, please. You were so alive. I'm not even a Jets fan, but it was so fun to watch this man play football. And now he gets a real quarterback to work with and a receiving core that should help open it up. Breece Hall, the New York Jets, to the moon, baby, at 255 attempts, 1,326 rushing yards, 51 receptions, 408 receiving yards, 10 total. Wait, I'm right on it. I thought I went ahead of myself. 10 total touchdowns, 284 total fantasy points. This is a guy that could very, very easily move even up in the rankings. But Breece Hall is an electric back, and he's fun to watch, and he should be in the top probably, 5 dynasty startup picks.
Yeah, I would say that's pretty comfortable in a single quarterback league, Brant. Starting in the top 5 then, we've got a guy who I'm not sure how you leave him outside of your top 5 running back rankings. That's King Henry, Derrick Henry of the Tennessee Titans. We have him for 320 attempts, 1,340 rushing yards, 35 receptions, 300 yards receiving, and 15 total touchdowns to go along with all that, coming in at 289 fantasy points.
It's Derrick Henry. It's not going to be the prettiest thing. He's going to put out some highlights of putting some people on their butts, but he's going to hang fantasy points, and that's what he does. It also helps that he gets to play the Texans twice a year. So next up at number 4 is Mr. Saquon Barkley, as long as he doesn't continue his holdout there.
Correct.
We have him for 287 attempts. Please stay healthy, Barkley. 1,291 rush yards, 55 receptions, 390 receiving yards, 11 total touchdowns for 289.1 fantasy points for Mr. Barkley. Another guy that's one of the cornerstones of that offense. They don't really have a receiving core, so he does almost everything for that offense.
Absolutely. Speaking of another guy who's been one of the focal points of his offense for a while, at number 3, Brant, we have Josh Jacobs of the Las Vegas Raiders. Jimmy G coming in at quarterback this year instead of Derek Carr should work in the tune of more receptions for Josh Jacobs. We'll see. Through 290 rushing attempts to go along with 1,268 rushing yards, 56 receptions, 399 receiving yards, 12 total touchdowns, coming in at 294.7 fantasy points.
Yep, I expect the Raiders to lean on him again this year. And like you said, Jimmy G coming in over Carr should go with more receptions. Number 2 is a guy in one of the most explosive offense, one of the most fun offenses to watch. Makes me vomit every single time I have to talk about anybody on this team. And that's CMC of the San Francisco 49ers. 225 attempts, 1,040 rushing yards, 75 receptions, 600 receiving yards, 16 total touchdowns for 335 fantasy points. This guy gets to play Seattle's defense that can't stop the run at least twice a year. He gets to play a banged up Arizona defense twice a year. CMC is a guy that you can't go wrong with.
Yeah, couldn't agree more, Brant. And coming in at number 1 is a guy that has kind of put up video game numbers the last couple of years here, ever since Melvin Gordon left town. Is also a big reason as to why Justin Herbert, in my mind, is a top 6 quarterback. It's Austin Eckler. He was the running back 1 last year. No reason he shouldn't be that again this year. 210 rushing attempts, 945 rush yards, 100 receptions for 680 receiving yards, 14 total touchdowns, coming in 11 points clear of the second place guy in our mind, Brant. 346.5 fantasy points. Austin Eckler coming in with another great season.
Yep. This is a guy that I honestly, and I say this now, I could see his rushing yards and his receiving yards kind of rushing and receiving work kind of flip this year. I could see him lean on him a little bit more in the rushing game and less in the receiving game, just because if all those receivers stay healthy, the rushing lane should be wide open with all the weapons they have there.
Absolutely, Brant. Absolutely. All right. So recapping the top 12, Nick Chubb, Najee Harris, Tony Pollard, Bijan Robinson, Jonathan Taylor, Ramondre Stevenson, Breece Hall, Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs, Christian McCaffrey, Austin Eckler, Brant. So, it took a lot of time. It took a lot of effort. Again, tons and tons of snacks, but we got through these consensus rankings. I know the wide receiver pool is going to take us quite a while to tear through, and that's something we're going to start working on shortly. But where are you at on these running backs? Is there anything that stands out to you, or anything that you're like, that guy could easily finish outside the top 24 that maybe we have ranked in there? Where are you at?
Outside we hit it with Pollard, so I'm going to try to skip from talking about that. And one guy that I could see finishing outside the top 24 is honestly, and I love this guy, and I hope I'm wrong, is Rachaad White. Just because I don't know how much his receiving work is going to be there. I don't know what Baker's going to do with that offense. I don't know really what's going to happen. We could end up seeing a whole Jameson Winston thing where he's just airing the ball up and he throws for 50 touchdowns and 50 interceptions in the same year, and see what happens there with the Tampa Bay. You no longer have a field general like Tom Brady. So White's a guy that I could see fall outside the top 24.
Okay, Brent, that's fair. Well, I don't have a whole lot to say about these top 24. I know we spent some time this morning trying to jockey a little bit about where we had each of these guys, and did we have somebody too high, too low, whatever. But for the most part, where they're at now, I feel pretty good about it. Obviously, things change as moves are made, but I'm pretty comfortable with where we have things right now, Brent.
Absolutely. I do want to say I appreciate you putting in the little extra time this week for me, as I was on the road most this weekend, so I was unable to touch on a whole lot of this using my computer. So I appreciate you putting in the extra time and effort for us. And as always, guys, stay hungry
and stay fat, my friends.